Let's start our first news. Michael Morales has revealed an interesting detail about seeing Islam backstage ahead of their highly anticipated matchup. According to Morales, there was a big difference between them physically when they crossed paths during interviews. Morales said he noticed that Islam looked noticeably smaller compared to him, especially when it came to height and reach. And that size difference could become a major factor once they step into the octagon. Of course, some fans will point out that Ian Garry was also significantly bigger than Morales, yet that did not prevent Morales from getting the victory. Garry is around 3 inches taller than Morales, but Morales has something that makes his physical advantages even more dangerous. His wingspan is massive. Morales reportedly has a 79-inch reach, which is around 4.5 inches longer than Ian's and roughly 8.5 inches longer than Islam's. That is a significant difference, especially in a striking battle. Having that kind of reach can allow Morales to control distance, land shots from the outside, and make it much harder for Islam to close the gap without taking damage. However, the biggest challenge for Morales will not simply be striking. It will be defending against Islam's elite grappling. Islam has built his reputation around controlling opponents on the ground, chaining takedowns together, and keeping them trapped once he gets them down. Morales will have to prove that his size and reach can actually help him stop that pressure. And Morales is not the only fighter looking to test Islam. Carlos Prates has also been openly calling for a title shot, making the welterweight division even more interesting. Move on to another news. Carlos Prates appears to have his eyes firmly set on Islam for UFC 334. Now that the UFC has officially announced the date and arena for UFC 334, Prates is once again making it clear that he wants Islam as his next opponent. And this time, he seems to be targeting the event in a very public way. Prates shared the UFC 334 event poster on his Instagram story, and he tagged Islam directly. Alongside the tag, he added a question mark, an eye emoji, and a handshake emoji. The message was simple, but the meaning was pretty clear. Carlos wants Islam, and he appears to be hoping they can headline the massive event together at Madison Square Garden. Interestingly, this matchup could actually make sense from Islam's side as well. Islam has already stated that he wants to fight before the end of the year, so the timing could line up perfectly if the UFC decides to put these two together. Prates has been pushing for a major opportunity, and facing Islam would instantly give him one of the biggest fights of his career. But stylistically, it would also be a huge challenge. Prates is known for his powerful striking and ability to hurt opponents at range. Islam, meanwhile, brings an elite grappling game that could completely change the pace of the fight. So, if this matchup becomes official, it would be a fascinating clash between Prates' striking and Islam's wrestling. And there was another interesting moment involving Islam after the PFL event on Saturday. Islam was spotted backstage and even took a photo with Dustin, the Diamond Poirier. It was a great moment to see, especially considering the history between Islam and Poirier, and it gave fans another memorable backstage moment surrounding the lightweight and welterweight stars. Move on to another news. Islam still appears to be recovering from the injuries he suffered during his fight with Ian Garry. A new video posted on social media has given fans another look at Islam's condition, and you can still see noticeable bruising around his eyes. The marks are likely connected to the broken nose he suffered after an accidental headbutt from Ian during their fight. While the matchup wasn't necessarily the most brutal fight we've ever seen, a broken nose can still lead to significant swelling and bruising around the face. In some cases, the impact can even cause both eyes to develop noticeable discoloration. And that appears to be what we're seeing with Islam right now. He also shared a picture with Magdi Amashaw, giving fans an even closer look at his face. The black eyes are still visible, suggesting that the recovery process is taking some time. Of course, facial bruising can remain for several days or even weeks, depending on the severity of the injury. So it's not necessarily a sign that something is seriously wrong. Still, it's clear that Islam has not completely returned to normal yet. The good news is that there haven't been any major indications that the injury will prevent him from returning to competition. Islam has previously made it clear that he wants to fight again before the end of the year. so his recovery will be something to keep an eye on as the next few weeks unfold. For now, the priority is simply allowing his nose and facial injuries to heal properly before getting back into full training. And speaking of Islam, Michael Morales recently revealed that he saw him backstage at UFC 330 and noticed a big difference in their physical size. Move on to another news. Diego Lopes versus Charles Oliveira may have already been leaked for UFC 334, and there could even be a BMF title on the line. Over the weekend, the UFC officially revealed the locations and dates for UFC 334 and UFC 335. Now, one potential matchup for UFC 334 is already generating serious buzz, with reports suggesting that Diego Lopes could face Charles Oliveira. Lopes recently confirmed that he is moving up to the lightweight division. After competing at featherweight for several years, Diego believes there isn't much left for him to accomplish there, especially after losing twice to the current champion, Alexander Volkanovski. Meanwhile, Charles was previously expected to face Arman, but that matchup is no longer expected to happen following the tragic passing of Charles's close friend and teammate. Now, a report from MMA Latino America claims it has received information about a possible fight between Lopes and Oliveira at UFC 334. The report says that more than one source has mentioned the matchup, and there is even speculation that the BMF title could be involved. Of course, this needs to be taken with a grain of salt. Nothing has been officially confirmed by the UFC, Charles or Diego at this point. However, there are several signs that make the rumor interesting. Lopes has already confirmed his move to lightweight, and he previously revealed that he was in advanced talks for his next fight. He also specifically mentioned November at Madison Square Garden as the date and location he wanted. That lines up perfectly with the UFC 334 event. If the promotion actually puts Lopes against Oliveira, it would be a major lightweight matchup featuring two extremely dangerous finishers. Lopes brings aggressive striking and relentless pressure, while Oliveira has one of the most dangerous submission games in UFC history. And if the BMF title is added to the equation, this matchup could become even bigger. Move on to another news. Charles Oliveira appears to have shut down the recent report linking him to a potential fight against Diego Lopes at UFC 334. Just 4 days before the report surfaced, Oliveira had already revealed on his Instagram story that he did not have a fight scheduled at the time. Then, following the report from MMA Latino America, Oliveira seemed to directly address the rumors, making it clear that the UFC has not offered him a fight yet. During a recent interview with Ola Deluda, Oliveira explained that he definitely wants to compete again this year, but currently has no opponent and nothing officially booked. He said that people continue throwing different names into the mix, especially after seeing him back in training. But according to Oliveira, nothing has actually been presented to him by the UFC. That is an important detail because Oliveira has made it very clear that he wants to return before the end of the year. However, at this moment, there is no confirmed opponent and no official fight agreement. There are still several possibilities here. Oliveira's team could potentially be involved in early discussions without anything formally reaching Charles yet. Another possibility is that Oliveira already knows something is being discussed, but simply does not want to confirm the matchup before the UFC makes an official announcement. But the simplest explanation may be that the report is simply wrong, and there is currently nothing being worked on between Oliveira and Lopes. Interestingly, both fighters have publicly expressed their desire to compete before the end of the year. That makes the potential matchup logically appealing, especially with Lopes moving up to lightweight. For now, though, there is nothing official connecting Charles Oliveira to UFC 334, and fans will have to wait for confirmation from the promotion before treating this matchup as anything more than speculation. Move on to another news. Islam and Dustin Poirier have linked up backstage, giving fans another interesting moment between two of the biggest names in the sport. After an action-packed weekend of MMA, Islam was spotted backstage with Dustin, and the two fighters even took a picture together. It was a simple moment, but considering their history and the level of competition both men have faced throughout their careers, it was definitely something that caught the attention of fans. Islam has been in the spotlight ever since his move into the welterweight division, while Dustin has remained involved around the sport despite stepping away from regular competition. Seeing the two together was a reminder of just how connected the MMA world can be. Dustin has also been keeping himself healthy and active around the MMA scene rather than completely disappearing from the sport. He has continued making appearances, following major events, and staying involved with the fighters and community that have been a huge part of his career. For Islam, this meeting comes at an interesting time. He is currently recovering from the injuries he picked up during his recent fight with Ian Gary. More than a week after the matchup, Islam has still been showing some bruising around his eyes, reportedly connected to the broken nose he suffered during the fight. Despite that, Islam has made it clear that he wants to return before the end of the year. So, his recovery will be important as he looks toward his next challenge. Meanwhile, Dustin remains one of the most respected veterans in the sport. He has shared the Octagon with some of the greatest fighters of his generation, including Islam, and their previous matchup was one of the biggest fights of Dustin's career. Islam ultimately defeated Dustin with a submission, but Poirier had his moments and showed exactly why he has been considered one of the most dangerous lightweights for so many years. Now, seeing them together outside the cage shows a completely different side of their relationship. After years of competing against each other and being part of some of the biggest UFC events, there is clearly respect between the two fighters. And with the UFC coming off another action-packed weekend, fans are already watching closely for the next major announcements, especially with several big names looking for their next opponents. Move on to another news. Movsar Evloev may have just hinted that he could retire if things go badly against Alexander Volkanovski at UFC 333. If you missed the recent comments from Volkanovski, the former champion revealed that he is not necessarily finished with MMA, but his upcoming fight against Movsar could potentially be his last. Volkanovski explained that if the fight goes terribly wrong, he could decide to hang up the gloves and walk away from competition. Now, it looks like Movsar is taking a very similar stance. After Volkanovski discussed the possibility of retirement in a social media post, Movsar responded directly in the comments. His message was short, but it definitely caught people's attention. Movsar essentially said, "Same thing," suggesting that he could also consider retirement if the fight goes badly for him. Of course, this doesn't necessarily mean that Movsar is seriously planning to retire after one loss. The comment could simply have been a playful response to Volkanovski's statement. Still, the fact that both fighters have now mentioned the possibility makes this matchup even more interesting. For Volkanovski, this could be another chapter in an incredible career that has already included multiple title reigns, legendary fights, and some of the biggest wins in UFC history. For Movsar, meanwhile, this is an opportunity to prove that he belongs at the very top of the featherweight division. The fight carries enormous stakes for both men. A dominant performance could push either fighter toward another major opportunity, while a brutal loss could force them to seriously reconsider what comes next. Hopefully, neither fighter suffers the kind of defeat that makes them question their future in the sport. But if things go badly, both men have now admitted that retirement could become part of the conversation. Next, we've got Drew Dober making his case for a fight against Michael Chandler. Dober is currently riding a 2-fight winning streak, and he appears to be looking for a major name as he continues his run in the lightweight division.